Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy, one of the Money Made Easy coaches, and we are so excited that you're here with us today for our summit, The Ultimate Recipe for Money Wellness, 5 Essential Ingredients. Today, we're each going to go over one essential ingredient. But before we get started, let's introduce ourselves. Hi, I'm Stacy Blackshear.
Sorry. No, I'm Nancy Ward. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio.
I'm Lesley Priest. I'm in Colorado Springs.
Hi, I'm Jamie Marshall and I am in Scotland.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Flory and I'm in Fort Myers, Florida.
Great. And so today it's going to be a combination between some videos and some question and answers for each of you. So if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to drop them in the chat. We also have some questions that have been submitted ahead of time that we'll answer where appropriate. Let's get started. Hi everyone, I'm Stacy and I help busy, overwhelmed families, especially those raising children with disabilities, find peace and clarity with their money. I'm so excited to be here today kicking off the summit. My presentation is Picture It, Plan It, Get Cookin'. Have you ever walked in the kitchen like our friend here, starving, opened the fridge and just stared? There's food in there, but no real plan. No real recipe. So, what do we often do? We nibble at random things and never quite feel satisfied. Money can feel the same way. We want things to change. We want peace or freedom or stability, but without a clear picture, we just keep nibbling. A little savings here, a little worry there, and a whole lot of stress. We need a clear vision, a picture for what you want with your money. Why do you think most cookbooks have pictures? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Well, our money works the same way. If we don't know what we're trying to create with our money, if we don't have a clear vision, then all the effort we put in can feel random and unsatisfying. That's why the first ingredient for money wellness is vision. Imagine opening that cookbook that we were talking about with no pictures. You see a list of ingredients, but you have no idea what you're aiming for. That's what it's like when you don't know the life that you want to create. So I want to take a moment right now and really picture it. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. Imagine it's a year from now. Something's different with your money. It's not perfect, but it's better. You feel more in control. Maybe a little more calm. What's changed for you? Is it that the bills aren't piling up anymore? Or that you're finally putting some money away in savings for a vacation you want to take? Or maybe it's just that money's not a daily stressor for you. That's your why. It's the essential ingredient for money wellness. And your goals, real research-backed goals, are the bridge between that vision and your reality. Dr. Howe at UCLA did a study involving our future selves. He found that when participants really thought about their future selves, saw them vividly with their families and their home and their life, they actually made better decisions today. Your vision is the picture on the front of the cookbook. It reminds you why you're doing all the chopping, simmering, and mixing, especially on those hard days. So once you have the picture, you need the recipe, step-by-step items you can do to achieve your goals. Let me share a few research-based tips to make your goals work for you. First, be specific. vague goals like save more money or like saying, I just want to cook something yummy. Instead, I will save $200 in the next 3 months. Locke and Latham's goal setting theory shows that specific goals increase success rates dramatically. And who wouldn't want that? Second is to start small. Your brain loves small wins. Setting micro goals, like paying off one bill first, triggers a dopamine hit in your brain and keeps you moving forward. If you want to save $600 for Christmas gifts in September, so that's $200 a month. Think about then what you need to do weekly for that, or if monthly works. Next is to write it down. A study from the Dominican University found that you're 42% more likely to achieve your goals when you write them down. It's kind of like having that recipe on the counter. You don't forget what you're cooking, and you can refer back to it to keep you centered and moving forward. Next, connect it to your identity. James Clear and Dr. Klontz have found that goals stick better when they connect to who we want to be. You're not just budgeting, you are a saver. You're becoming someone who says, I check in with my money every Sunday to feel calm and in control. That emotion, control, dignity, that's that real reason behind your goals. Really tap into that when you're coming up with your goals. If you tap into your emotions and why this goal is important, your brain is more likely to follow through. And lastly, the habit hook. If you can make your goal easy to remember and attach it to something that you already do, you're more likely to achieve it. That's called a habit hook. So, for instance, after I start the dishwasher, I check in on my budgeting app. Or every Sunday night after the kids go to bed, I have the money date with my spouse and we review our transactions. Think of this like cooking a big meal. If you try to do everything at once with no steps, you get pure chaos. But with a clear recipe, you can enjoy the process and the results. There are lots of options, lots of possibilities and ingredients with your goals and your money. But it won't matter if you don't use them with purpose. So think about your vision just a few minutes ago, or you may tweak it. What would your life look like 3 years from now if money felt peaceful and intentional? What are you able to say yes to because of your financial choices? Now, I want you to write down 2 goals. One short term in the next 3 to 6 months, and then one long term in the next 2 to 5 years. This is the start of your financial recipe. Now, with those goals, let's break them down one more step. What is one action you can do today or this week that will bring you closer to achieving that goal? It could be as simple as choosing to host friends at your house instead of ordering takeout, or taking your kids to the park instead of the bounce house. How does your goal connect to your identity? Can you make a statement or a mantra that is in line with your goal? Like, I'm a saver, or I make good decisions with my money? And then can you connect it to another behavior that you already have in your life so it can stick? This diagram is a summary of the components that can help stick with your goals. The workbook also has a sheet to accompany this. So now is the time to get cooking. You have your vision and your goals for your financial dish. Here's my contact information if you have any questions about visioning, goal setting, or your money in general. You can also contact me through Facebook. And then after the Q&A, you will hear about another ingredient for money wellness, preparation.
Stacey, that was brilliant. Just listen to that, setting the goals, keeping them small, etc. So useful. We have got some pre-submitted questions, and a couple of things that I've seen come in. Um, First question, and this was a submitted one. I've got no retirement savings up to this point. How do I get started saving for retirement, even though it's late in the game?
Yeah. So I think it's important to remember that you just need to start where you're at and try not to figure out what is doable for you with your retirement savings. So assuming that you already have a good emergency fund, thinking about what would be a good amount for you to save for retirement, and then knowing those different vehicles that are available for you when you retire, because as you get older, you are able to contribute maybe more of an amount to those retirement accounts, but each retirement account does have some special rules with it. So really getting some education around the different types of accounts is really, I think, helpful. And then coming up with a specific plan for that. Because like, for instance, for me, when I was teaching, I had access to a 457 account, but that's not something that everybody has access to. So some of it depends on your employer. Some of it depends on what you have as far as earned income, what you can do with different individual retirement accounts. And then sometimes people choose to save actually for retirement in either a taxable brokerage or using CDs or even just a high yield savings account. So all of those different things, there's a lot of different options, and it really kind of depends on you. If you have a specific question, we can try to kind of help answer that. But the biggest thing is not to be discouraged, to set up a plan and to kind of stick with that plan in order to save consistently.
Yeah, so even though it might be late in the game, it's never too late.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
And the best time to do it is starting today.
exactly. Excellent. Thank you. Next question is, I know I need to do better with my money. I've created goals, but it's hard to stick with them. What could you recommend?
Yeah, so sometimes I think when we create these goals, we make them really big and they sound great, but we don't think about what would it actually take to get to that specific goal. So
Mhm.
I really like to break down the goals into either daily actions or even weekly actions that lead you closer to that goal. Because I think that's something that if we make it more present, we're more likely to do. And we don't have to necessarily be perfect with it, but as we move closer and as we do those small steps continuously, then we're more likely to achieve those larger goals. So I would really try to kind of look and break it down and make sure that that's really clear.
Yeah, so making them smaller and not aiming for perfect. I think that's a
Yes.
brilliant answer. Thank you. How can I create a vision when there's so much uncertainty right now, Stacey?
Yeah. Especially in the US right now, there's just a lot of things going on that we don't have control over. So I think it's really important to kind of focus on the things that you do have control over. I can't necessarily control inflation. I can't control, what's going to happen maybe with the housing market or interest rates. All of those things I may think about, but they're really outside of my control. However, I can control what I choose to spend my money on. I can control if I choose to pick up that extra shift or maybe grab a part-time job or do some door dashing or babysitting. Those are things that I have control over. And I think it's really important when other things that we can't control that we really stay focused and use our energy for things that we can control and really think about it that way. And so with a vision, okay, if I had my ideal vision in the things that I can control, what would I like that to be? I would like for me, it was, I wanted to spend more time with my family. That was a vision that I had for myself. Okay, so even if everything else is kind of going haywire, how can I make that vision a possibility? And so I think it's really important that even more so when things are outside of our control, that we have a really clear vision about why we're working as hard as we are and that we're focused in order to achieve those goals.
Yeah, I think as humans, we have a real tendency to try and control the uncontrollable. And actually, that takes a huge amount of effort and energy. Where actually our focus is what can we do and what can we not worry about. I get that completely. Thank you for that. Final question. We have heard some researches and books in your presentation there. Is there one that you would recommend for habit forming?
Yes. So if you're only going to read one book about habits, I would recommend Atomic Habits by James Clear. It is an excellent book. You can get it from your library. You can they probably have it on Hoopla or Libby. And so you can access it for free. And it is an amazing book about habits. And it's all research based and it's very helpful.
That is brilliant. And actually, I can see the other coaches nodding their head furiously. So you've got 5 recommendations for one there. That is brilliant. Thank you so much, Stacey. I think we're now moving on to the next presentation.
Hi, friends. I'm money coach Lesley Priest with CS Financial Coaching, and I'm a proud member of the Money Made Easy coaching team. Let me start today with a question. Have you ever tried to cook in a kitchen that is not yours? And then let's say you're trying out a new recipe that you've never made before. Well, how would you handle that situation? What do you think your first steps might be? Well, when I've been in this situation, maybe at a friend's house or while traveling, the first thing I do is figure out how the kitchen is equipped. Do I have the right utensils? Are there enough pots and pans? And are they the right kind? What cooking appliances are available? Do I even have the right kind of space to work? Well, then I check the pantry and the fridge. What ingredients are already here and what will I need to bring in or go out and get? It's kind of the same feeling when you've set new money goals, or maybe life throws a curveball at you, like a job change, a move, a divorce, a health situation, or even deciding it's time to finally take control of your finances. It's like you're trying to create a new recipe in an unfamiliar kitchen. You need to figure out, where am I starting? What do I already have? And what do I need to build the future I want? Well, my first step, I always read the recipe carefully. I want to understand, what am I making? What are the steps? How do I need to prepare? Like, do I need to preheat the oven or grease a pan? How long can I expect this will take? That's all part of money planning too, where you clarify your goals and your vision. You've probably just heard some of this from Stacy, how to dream, how to define what success looks like for you. But now we're going to shift from dreaming to actually doing. But before we act, before we do, we need to prep. This is the big idea I hope you will take from today. Before you begin to cook up big changes in your money situation, review the recipe and prep your tools. Plan today so you can thrive tomorrow. You shouldn't just jump into spending, saving, or investing without first understanding your current situation, your starting point, what tools you already have, and what gaps need to be filled. And just like preheating the oven before baking and laying out your tools, the earlier and more thoughtfully you prepare, the better your results will be. There's an old saying I love: prior preparation prevents poor performance. If you skip the prep for your money, you're likely to end up reacting instead of leading, overspend, or undersave. Stress and confusion can slow you down. Preparing isn't just about getting organized, it's about being intentional. And when you prepare your money situation before you take action, well, you gain clarity, you reduce your emotional spending, you build confidence, and you make better decisions. Most importantly, you stop reacting and start leading your money with purpose, creating a smoother path toward achieving your goals. Preparation turns stress into strategy. So let's make this real. What does financial preparation actually look at? Well, here are 5 practical ways to prep your money kitchen. Number 1, get clear about your starting point. What's your income? What are your expenses? What debt do you have? What savings or assets are in place? Number 2, you want to understand the value of time for your money. Basically, the earlier you start, even small, the more you benefit from compounding, the power of compound interest. Even $10 a week saved compounds with time. It builds on itself. And as you bring in interest, for example, or return on investment, that gets reinvested and you build on all of that. That's the power of compounding. Time is one of your most powerful tools, along with consistency. So waiting is kind of like putting your cake into a cold oven. Automate where you can. This is number 3, and it's like making pre-made decisions, and it helps you be consistent. So you can do things like set up automatic transfers to savings, so you don't even have to think about it. You can schedule payments, so you're never late. You avoid interest, late fees, and penalties. And then just put in place systems that make it easier for you to follow through. Systems are tools that reduce stress and decision fatigue. The 4th one is name your priorities. Be clear on this. Don't try to do everything at once. That's like throwing spaghetti against the wall, and it gets stressful. Evaluate what is most important to you right now. Build up your emergency fund. That might be one. Or maybe you want to reduce debt. Or do you have a specific savings goal? Start with one thing, and then you can add more goodness to your recipe as you go along. And this is the 5th one, and this is kind of optional, but it's kind of a secret for success for your family. If you want to change your kids' or loved ones' future too, teach them as you go. If you have kids, let them see you plan. You're their role model, after all. Involve them in conversations like, hey, we're going to save for a big trip, or we're making space for our future dreams, and this is what it looks like. Can you help? Help them learn good money habits. Start now. Start small if you need to, but the thing is, you need to start on purpose. Now, going back to the kitchen and recipe prep metaphor, let's think about preheating the oven and what that does for you. Because you don't put a cake into a cold oven. It won't rise. It'll just fall. It'll flop. Now, when you're preheating, you're setting the right conditions before you begin. You're setting yourself up for future success. Financially, this means getting organized, setting up accounts, creating space for new habits, and giving your money the time it needs to grow. Don't wait for the perfect time. The power of money is really in consistency plus time. So let me share a quick example from someone I know. We'll call her Emma. So Emma had just gone through a divorce, and she was adjusting to her new income, her new life, and trying to figure out how to provide stability for her kids. She knew eventually she wanted to buy a new house, but she didn't know where to start. So together we talked about it. We paused, and then we figured out really in detail what her new situation was. She got the clarity she needed to take control of her money in the present and start to figure out what she wanted to do. So together, we reviewed the recipe, her goals, and we gathered her tools, her current situation, her income, her expenses, and we began to understand her options. We didn't jump right into house hunting. Instead, we focused on setting Emma up together for success in her future. And we worked on how she could continue setting herself up for success. We wanted to prep by reviewing her recipe, her goals, inventorying her tools and ingredients, income, expenses, debts, savings. And then we built a simple budget. We started a savings habit for a down payment. And then we created a plan to build her financial stability over the next 2 years. So now she's not just surviving, she's taking control and she's actively using those tools to build her future. This is the power of preparation. Now, here are 3 actions you can take right now, today, to get your own kitchen, your money kitchen, ready. Number 1, you can take inventory of your finances. Log into those accounts. Know what you have, what you owe, what you earn, and where you spend. Figure out your monthly expenses. And then 2, start with small steps, like choose 1 or 2 tools to start setting up yourself for success in the future. Maybe it's a new savings account, or maybe you set up an automatic transfer that helps you not have to decide every single time you get a paycheck how much you can afford to save. And then you can always use an app, a spreadsheet, a journal to keep track of your goals, your plans, and where you stand right now. Block a small chunk of time. This is powerful, like maybe even 15 to 30 minutes for focused money prep. You want a money prep session to set yourself up for success, but you want it to be low stress. So get comfortable, light a candle, grab a drink, sit down with your money recipe, dream a little, plan a little, but get that clarity. Figure out and prep your tools. Small steps compound into big results. Now, here's what I hope you're going to remember. Clarity comes from preparation. Confidence comes from consistency, and success comes when you pause to prep before you move forward into your future, before you stir that pot, before you spend, save, or invest. Review the recipe, gather your tools, plan and prep today, and you'll be ready to thrive tomorrow. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and our whole day of our summit.
Lesley, that was a great presentation. I really enjoyed that, and I particularly liked the story of Emma, and also involving your family in your financial plans. That is such a good lesson we can give our kids, isn't it? And that links to the first question that we have had submitted. As a busy stay-at-home mum, I can't have a regular 9 to 5 job. How can I make additional income for my family?
Yes, this is such a common question, isn't it, Jenny?
Yeah, we've had this, and it's such a good one to ask as well.
Yes. So I added this framework for thinking through this into the workbook. What I want you to do is just think about maybe out of the box solutions. So I created a 10-question framework to help spark ideas, to help you brainstorm, but to put together ideas that will actually fit your life, right? Because that's what it's all about. You can't do a 9 to 5. You have kids to deal with, activities, all the stuff that busy moms end up having. So what can you do? You can ask yourself things like, well, how much do I need to earn? And why am I trying to earn it? How much time do I really have? Is it just a little time here and there, or are there blocks of time where I can actually focus on whatever my income source idea is? Do you like to make things? Do you like to provide services? What are your skills and talents and passions right now that could be turned into money-making ideas? Who do I want to work with? And, do I want to work with people directly or maybe a little further away online or something like that? And is this a short-term goal that I want to bring more income in for, or is this sort of a long-term supplement to my family's income that we're already making? So what we're trying to do, and I've said this a couple times, we're trying to boost clarity. We're trying to bring clarity to where you are right now, and then help you generate ideas. It could be selling things, it could be tutoring, childcare, virtual work, etc. But the key point is you have to design it around your life, your family, and your time.
That's brilliant. And also us mums have picked up a whole load of skill set along the way, which are really, really transferable into jobs. So never undersell yourself either. You will have picked up so many skills that are useful and that you can earn money from. So that's a brilliant answer. Thank you, Lesley. Next question that we've had in is, I have a lot of debt and it feels really overwhelming to look at it. What would you recommend they do first?
That's that whole clarity thing again. It's sort of a theme. You need to be clear about your debt. What is the situation? Because not knowing, and we've all experienced this, I think, not knowing causes a lot of stress. You don't know what you can do because you don't know what the actual problem is. So that's why preparation is really important. That's why uh, uh, creating like a debt snapshot, just writing down what the balances are, looking into what this debt actually is, balances, due dates, interest rates, who you owe. Once it's on paper, it's much easier to just look at the whole thing and then begin to understand how to prioritize what you're tackling, and what you'll begin to discern what your goal is. Actually, is it just to reduce debt because you don't have the cash flow to pay it off, or do you want to pay it all off soon? And you can come up with a plan when you have that clarity. And the unknown just feels scarier than when you look at the actual numbers, because very often it's not nearly as big a monster as you might imagine it is before you know. So again, in the workbook, there are some useful sheets for trying to work through and get that clarity.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I would totally agree. Sometimes we think we're in a better and safer space when we don't know, but actually it takes courage and bravery. But once we've got it written down and we can see it, then yeah, our plans start happening. So brilliant, thank you. Next question I've got is, I don't know where all my money is going each month, and a lot of times there's more month than money. How do I figure this out?
You're definitely not alone, first of all. This is so much more common than you might think. So the first thing is just try not to stress. Keep things as simple as possible. And again, getting that clarity. It is apparently my theme word for today. Get clarity on where you are, and then you can start to prep. Because again, with where is your money all going, similar to my last answer about the debt, well, the best way is to get it all in front of you. So take a look at, for a start, the last 30 days of your spending, and grab bank and credit card statements. And then you're going to hear more of this from Nancy, but you're going to look for patterns. You're going to look for things like groceries, subscriptions, eating out. And you're trying to bring together your spending information so you can begin to get a handle on it. You're going to basically be facing the choices you made over the last 30 days. And then you can see where you can sort of take control and start to improve. So write down your expenses for the last month, and that's going to help you get that clarity. And then you're going to compare that with your income. And if you have more month than money, then you're going to want to start thinking about adjustments, start thinking about those goals, and then make your plan.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I'm looking forward to hearing from Nancy, but also to Stacey's presentation as well about small things adding up. I think if we can make small changes that you've said and Stacey has said as well, then getting that clarity is so important. And yeah, and also don't think the first time you have to figure it all out. I think what I'm hearing from you as well, Lesley, is start where you can.
Start where you can, start where you are. Don't be afraid. I know
Yeah.
it feels scary, but don't be afraid to look at the actual numbers, because knowing is going to reduce that stress.
Yeah, absolutely. Final question for you, Lesley. I don't really have time to do a lot of work on my money and figure it all out. And besides, I've tried budgets, but I don't stick with them. What can I do?
Start small. You heard that from Stacy. You may hear that again in the upcoming presentations. I kind of have a mantra for when I'm trying to build a new habit. And I ask myself, how have I made 5 minutes matter today? Even just 5 minutes today of focus on whatever I'm trying to accomplish, whatever habit I'm trying to build, it builds up. And even if you just put 5 minutes on the timer and you get going, and a lot of times what happens for me, 5 minutes turns into 15 very productive minutes or 30 very productive minutes, but focused on whatever the task at hand is. So I would say with money, because there tends to be you want a little more time. I talked about setting aside a chunk of time, 15 to 30 minutes. So again, maybe set a timer and just focus on money prep. Focus on what your money goals are. And then get that clarity about your current situation. And what will happen is you'll start to get the bigger picture and solutions will start occurring to you. You're going to start getting ideas because you're looking at it in a focused manner. So small, consistent sessions, be relaxed. Like I said, grab a drink, light a candle, whatever you need to do to create a peaceful, stress-free environment as you look at these things. That may help because from the question, I've tried budgeting and failed. I don't stick with it. That's a stressor. So you want to take that stress out of it, build a new habit of looking at things, and you'll be able to move forward.
I love that. Make 5 minutes matter. Love that. I think we should all take that away. That is brilliant. So I think it's time for us to say thank you, Lesley, and we'll move on to our next presentation.
Hi there, I'm Kimberly Flory, and I'm a pharmacist turned financial coach. I help other healthcare professionals to get clear with their money so they can crush debt and achieve freedom and live life on their own terms. I'm sharing Prep First, Thrive Later. The secret ingredient is proactivity. Have you ever been part of a cookie exchange? Maybe you have a really good sugar cookie that you want to make for your annual Christmas holiday exchange. So you go to the fridge, you get all your wet ingredients, and then you go to the pantry and you realize you don't have the baking powder. And you think to yourself, do I really need baking powder? What does it actually do? Well, baking powder is what they call a leavening agent. And it's the thing that's going to help your cookie rise. It's going to prevent it from spreading out. And without it, you may have a cookie that the texture's just off. So you think, what are you going to do now? Are you going to stop what you're doing and run to the store and buy the baking powder? Are you going to send your husband? Maybe you're going to have it delivered. Regardless of what you do, it's going to cost you time, energy, and it may even cost you more money because when you bought the other ingredients, they may have been on sale, and now this one you're going to have to pay for full price. So being proactive is having that list with you when you are getting your recipe together, when you're in the grocery store, and you're checking everything off to make sure that you have everything beforehand. Another way of thinking of it is this little silver pinball being hit by the paddles. If you are constantly going from one financial crisis to another, you may feel like that very pinball, just being bounced around. Unexpected expense, you get hit with the paddle. Not enough for taxes, you get hit with the paddle. Credit cards late, you get hit with the paddle. I want you to know that you can get out of the machine and take control of your money. Famous author John C. Maxwell says, if you're proactive, you focus on preparing. If you're reactive, you end up focusing on repairing. And if you sit there and think about it, I'm sure you can think of times where you were repairing instead of being proactive. So what is the cost of being reactive? Being reactive with your money can lead to stress, wasted resources, and decisions made out of panic instead of purpose. I know that's happened to me where I've gotten an unexpected bill and I had to put it on a credit card, and I made that decision out of panic, where if I was being proactive and thought about it ahead of time, I could have saved myself from putting it on a credit card and saved myself a ton of interest. So the three things are stress, definitely feeling stress and unprepared, wasted resources, if you have bills coming in, maybe they're late, maybe you're behind, that's going to cost you money. It's also going to cost you time and energy. And then, of course, loss of control. If you keep putting things on a credit card, those bills start piling up, you're going to feel like you're out of control. So what does proactivity really mean? Proactivity means taking intentional action before the problems come up, instead of reacting after the fact. It's about anticipating your needs, taking time to plan ahead, and choosing to lead your financial life instead of letting it lead you. So this could look like, plan weekly with intention, not perfection. We don't strive for perfection because there are things that can happen that are totally out of your control, but you do want to plan with intention. So I always recommend having a calendar with you. A calendar can be your best friend when dealing with your finances. Take small steps now to prevent big stress later. For example, with that emergency fund. Even if you're only saving $100 a month, $50 a month, whatever you can afford, starting to build that emergency fund is going to make it less stressful when emergency does happen, and they will happen. It's just a matter of time. So even if you can't pay cash for that emergency, you may be able to put some of it on your credit card and pay cash for half of it. Every little bit helps. Know your numbers. Know them before they control you. Track your spending. Keep a little notebook with you. Write things down. That way you'll be able to see some trends, maybe where you're spending more in a certain area, maybe where you can redirect your money. And then, of course, reframe proactivity as freedom, not restriction. Plan for your variable expenses that happen throughout the year. This is going to be such a relief. It's going to decrease that stress, and it truly will lead to that freedom. So what are the three pillars to proactivity? Every great recipe starts with intention. And in this one, mindset is your starting point, habits are your daily prep, and systems are the tools that make it all come together. So mindset, habits, and systems. Those are the three pillars. So I like to think of mindset as the anchor. Before we can start to build new habits or systems, we have to start with mindset. This is where clarity truly begins and where your shift from being reactive to proactive starts. So I've included a little worksheet in the workbook, and it's a self-reflection tool. Are you being reactive or proactive? So you can go through the questions, and I have them divided into money, time, and energy because I truly believe that they are all intertwined. For example, if your reactive habit is using a credit card for an unexpected expense, the proactive shift could be to start to build your emergency fund. And you can put your own situations in there, things that are happening to you that you find yourself being reactive with. And I also advise you doing it with your time and your money and your energy. And then in section 2, you're going to recognize the mindset behind your habits. So say you have a bunch of bills that have been piling up and you've been so stressed that you don't want to look at them. You just say, I'll deal with them later. Instead, say, I'm going to plan ahead to decrease stress. You want to try to take some of the emotion out of it. It can be very emotional. Money is very emotional. But I want to encourage you to take a look at it and just think of it as data, as numbers, as the facts, so that you have a starting point so that you can really start to make a change. So in section 3, you're going to write down your proactive game plan. And you could do that for your money, for your time, and for your energy. So the next one are your habits. And I like to think of habits as the foundation. Habits are what shapes your financial reality. What you do daily matters more than what you do every once in a while. If at the beginning of the year you make this really nice looking budget, you put all your things in it, but then you don't look at it again for 3 or 4 months, it's really not going to help you. But it's those little daily habits that you're doing every single day that really matters and that is really going to help you make a change. So I've included a worksheet in the workbook, and I like to call this the Simmer Fund. And this is for your variable expenses. And it explains how to use it. I want you to think of this. This is for your sinking fund. You might have heard it called a sinking fund, your variable expenses. I want you to think of it as your proactive money pot, just like that big pot of soup that's simmering. That's what you want to do with your variable expenses. These are expenses that you know are coming, but you don't pay for them every month. So these are the ones that can cause a lot of stress in your life. Think HOA that may happen quarterly, or maybe insurance premiums that might happen twice a year, or possibly even the holidays or birthdays. These are things that happen, but we're really not thinking about them every month. So I included how to use it and how to break it down. And we'll talk about that on the next sheet as well. So for example, maybe you're thinking about Christmas and you're doing this at the beginning of the year. It's January, and you look back through last year's credit card and bank statements and you see that you spent $600 on Christmas last year. So you want to have $600 for this year. So you're going to write down the category, the amount that you need, when you need it. For example, you like to do your shopping on December 1st, and then how much you need. So you take the $600 divided by 12 months, so you need $50 a month. And you could do this with any of your expenses. Which gets us to the systems. So here's the tracker, and I've included this in your workbook. And this is what I like to call the support or the systems. These systems are going to help you. With a little prep now, you're going to have fewer surprises later. So the systems are the magic behind the scenes. They're going to help you stay consistent, even on busy days. So think of these tools like trackers, like the one I've included here, apps like You Need a Budget or Every Dollar, Google or Excel spreadsheets. A lot of people like to use spreadsheets, and even automations, automating your bills, automating your money going into your Simmer fund, automating money going into your emergency fund. It's going to make it easy to repeat when you use these tools to support you. So what are 3 ways that you could start being proactive today? What are some quick wins? What can you do? So you can start tracking your expenses for 1 week. Take a little notebook with you, jot it down, and you're going to get into that little habit of doing that. You could do a weekly review and reset. You could choose a day like Saturday or Sunday, make a date with yourself or with your spouse, and just go through and review the expenses that you wrote down in your notebook. See if there's any trends. Are there things that you're spending too much money on? Maybe things that you can reallocate your money to. And choose 3 recurring things this week that you're going to prep for. It could be your money. It could be time. Maybe you're going to prep your meals. It could also be your energy. Maybe you're going to put on your calendar every day, you're going to schedule 5 or 10 minutes just to take a break, maybe do some deep breaths, drink a glass of water, maybe walk around, get a few steps in, and just reset for the rest of the day. So what is your call to action? You don't have to overhaul your life. You just need to prep 1 step ahead. That's how we go from just surviving to thriving. And when you thrive, you will be growing and then winning. So I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you got some value. I'll be available for the Q&A, and we've got another great presentation up next.
Hey Kim, that was brilliant. Well done.
Thank you.
I love your 3 recurring things, and that's magic for money as well as non-money things too. So that's a bonus.
Exactly. I believe it's all tied together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got a pre-submitted question, Kim, I'm just going to ask. Retirement is coming up soon. Where's a good place to put my 401k without having to pay extra taxes?
Well, I must preface to say that I'm not a financial advisor or an accountant. However, I can just share some general knowledge and some things that I've done. I had an old 401k and I actually rolled it to a traditional IRA because it's pre-tax money and it's in kind. And when you do something like that, there's no tax implications as long as you do a direct rollover. Now, you would have to work with your accountant as far as trying to do things to decrease taxes because obviously that money was not taxed. So when you do take it out, you do have to pay taxes on it. But there are strategies that your investor pro can do, such as doing a backdoor Roth or something like that. So really, I mean, it depends on your own situation, what tax bracket that you're in, and what type of investments that you would have your money in. So there are some strategies, but there's no real way to get rid of all of the taxes, but there could be some strategies to reduce the taxes that you may pay. So I would say that would be the best thing to do is to contact a financial advisor and of course to, look at someone that can do like a fee for service. You don't want someone that's going to be charging you a lot of fees. And you also want to work with someone that's going to teach you what you're doing. Like the investment professional that I have, we work together and he explains things to me. So I would say to look for someone that's going to be more of a teacher and is going to help you with those decisions because you definitely want to be involved in the decisions of where you're going to put your money.
Brilliant. And sometimes I think, if we have to spend a little bit more upfront, to have someone teach us, but then we have the knowledge that we take forward, then that's money well spent. But just being careful about who we ask, is super, super helpful.
Definitely, definitely.
Excellent. Our next question is, how do I start being more proactive when unexpected expenses keep throwing me off track?
And that's a great question. It could be very frustrating when those things happen. But I like to suggest, starting simple, maybe having a simple surprise me fund or have a little buffer in your checking account. That could be $500 a month, that could be $100 a month. And that could be a way to start building that into an emergency fund, but just start as easy as possible and just name it, this is my surprise fund and put some extra money in there every month so that when something does happen, it's not going to be as catastrophic. I had a client who started doing this and they started small and started building gradual, and they actually had to get a new water heater and they were able to pay cash for it. Before they wouldn't have been able to do that. So just starting small and building it as you go. Maybe you can't put $100 in there every month. Maybe one month you only put 50, but being consistent in those actions will help you to build up that fund.
Brilliant. And very similar question. What if my income is inconsistent? Can I still be proactive?
You can. It can be a little harder, of course, but I always like to recommend looking back. If you have a variable income, looking back over the last 3 months and doing an average to kind of get, an average reading of what your expenses are every month. And then go through your budget and do like a bare bones budget. Like, what do you absolutely have to have every month? Like your basic expenses, what could you do without? And just, go with that. And then you could start building like a mini sinking fund from that. But when you have that variable expenses, you really want to have that basic number of those things that you have to have every month. So that's what I would recommend doing, and then building up like a mini sinking fund for that, or sinking funds if you have multiple things that are coming up.
That is brilliant. I love the bare bones budget as well. That is really empowering for people to do. So that's super advice. What are some common signs if I'm being reactive instead of proactive with my money?
Well, I would definitely say if you constantly feel yourself like being surprised when something happens, or always feeling like you're paying catch up, or constantly turning to credit cards. I know, I hear this a lot. I only use my credit card for an emergency. Well, emergencies happen quite a bit. So, if you find yourself doing that and only making those decisions when things become urgent, you want to try to turn that around and start planning and making these decisions before things happen. Because, I think Lesley was saying, keeping your head buried in the sand, not looking at things. You definitely want to look at them, and don't let it frighten you. It's just numbers. If you plan ahead and just think of it that way, and try to take the emotion out of it. I know it's very hard, but try to think more rationally. It will decrease some of that stress. And I think that's the best way to do it. Just start looking at it and don't set it aside.
Brilliant. And I'm thinking as well, we probably aren't going to go reactive to proactive in one day. So there's a little bit of kindness that we need to give ourselves, and recognize that it's a journey, isn't it?
It is. And that's why I said we don't strive for perfection. It's just those little daily steps that you do every single day.
Brilliant. That's so good. Thank you so much, Kim. And
You're
we are
welcome.
on to Nancy, I believe now.
Welcome to the Spending Breakdown. Slice, dice, and simplify your finances. I want you to think about your money like a recipe. If you've ever tried to cook a meal without preparing your ingredients, you know how stressful this can be. Chopping vegetables as the pan is already heating up, realizing halfway through that you don't have enough of something, or over seasoning because you weren't paying attention. It's messy, rushed, and overwhelming. That's how most people handle their money. They react in the moment, scramble to cover bills, making quick decisions without seeing the big picture, and often realizing too late that something important is missing. Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy Ward. I'm really excited to be here with you at the Money Made Easy Summit. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'm a single mom of two. So I know firsthand how life and money often intersect in messy, unpredictable ways. I work as a financial coach, and my focus is helping people who are making good money but still feel like it slips through their fingers. A lot of my clients come to me frustrated because traditional budgeting hasn't worked for them. What I do is take the pressure off of that. Instead of asking people to track every single dollar, I help them focus on financial habits and spending awareness. Together, we look at what's really happening with their money, where it's going, what habits are driving these choices, and how to make simple shifts that actually stick. My goal is to make finances feel less stressful and more manageable so clients can pay down debt, build a savings, and even start feeling more in control without feeling restricted. I believe progress doesn't come from perfection, it comes from awareness, accountability, and small changes that add up over time. And that's the approach I'll be sharing with you today. My goal today is to give you a simple way to slice and dice your money into categories so that your financial recipe comes together with less stress and more ease. It's not about creating a rigid budget that makes you feel guilty when life happens. Instead, this is about creating a framework that you can actually live with. In this presentation, I'll walk you through the 5 categories of spending, show you how to break down your own money, and give you some small, doable tasks that you can put into action right away. By the time we're done, you'll not only understand where your money really is going, but you'll have the tools to start making it work better for you. And the best part? You don't need to track every penny. You just need to group your money in the right way, like organizing your ingredients before you cook. So let's dive in. How many of you have asked yourself, where does all my money go? You get paid, you pay some bills, you grab your groceries, you treat yourself to a few small things, and suddenly, poof, your bank balance feels empty. For most people, it's not about not making enough money. Many of my clients are high earners, but they still feel broke because their money isn't organized in a way that makes sense. Traditional budgeting doesn't seem to help much either. You write down 30 line items, assign amounts, and then life laughs at your plan. Maybe the car breaks down. Maybe you had a tough week and spent more on takeout. Or your kid suddenly needs money for a field trip. The budget cracks and you feel like you failed. When you budget into that detail, it's like trying to cook a complicated recipe when you've never chopped an onion before. It's just too much, too soon, and it sets you up to quit. That's why category spending works so well. It simplifies everything down to the 5 main areas. You're not tracking every single expense. You're simply just noticing which category it belongs to. This gives you clarity without the overwhelm. Here's a simple exercise. Grab a piece of paper and write down the last 3 things that you bought. Don't overthink it, just jot it down. Now, can you tell me, would those fit into bills, debt, lifestyle, or something else? This quick reflection shows how often we spend without realizing what bucket it's coming from. Category spending is simple. Instead of tracking every transaction, you group your money into a handful of categories. Think of it like setting out bowls before you cook. One for vegetables, one for meat, one for spices. It doesn't matter if you chop a carrot or a pepper, they all go in the same bowl. The same is true for money. You don't need to know that you spent exactly $6.72 at Starbucks on Tuesday. What you need to know is that it falls under the lifestyle spending. That awareness is powerful. Here's why. Once you know your categories, your brain starts making better decisions automatically. If you see that most of your money is going to lifestyle spending, you'll naturally pause before hitting the checkout on Amazon. If you notice your debt category is huge, you'll start looking for ways to shift your money out of lifestyle or extras in order to pay down that debt. It's not about restriction, it's about awareness and control. When you know what you're working with, you can adjust with confidence. So here's something that you can do today. Open your bank or credit card app and scroll through the last 10 transactions. Don't write the amounts down. Just label each one of them: essential, debt, lifestyle, or irregular. In 2 minutes, you'll see patterns you may not have noticed before. The first benefit is clarity. You'll finally see where your money actually goes. Most people are shocked when they realize how much is slipping into the lifestyle spending or small repeated categories, such as subscriptions. The second benefit is flexibility. Unlike strict budgets that tell you can only spend $100 on groceries and $50 on gas, categories let you flex. Some months you may spend more on groceries, some months on gas, but it balances out in the same category. And the third benefit is confidence. Instead of wondering, can I afford this? You already know where you stand. You can say yes or no to spending decisions without guilt because you know you've already accounted for it. So I want you to pick one category where you're always feeling unsure. Maybe it's groceries or dining out. This week, just pay attention to that one category. Don't track everything, just notice your choices. That's your starting point. Now it's time to walk through the 5 categories I use with my clients. The first one is essentials. These are your non-negotiables: rent or mortgage, utilities, phone, insurance, groceries. They're the basics that keep life running. Second category is debts and obligations. These are credit cards, loans, and also the bills you've committed to, like subscriptions or memberships. It's anything you're required to pay because of a past choice. Third category is flexible spending. This is where most people get into trouble. Things like dining out, shopping, entertainment, Amazon orders. Trust me, I know that Amazon order category. It's flexible because it's within your control. The fourth category is irregular expenses. These are the sneaky ones. Car repairs, holiday gifts, school fees, vacations. They don't show up monthly, so they often catch you off guard. And finally, savings or cushion. I know that savings doesn't feel like an expense, but here's why I put this here. If you don't treat it like a bill to pay yourself, it doesn't happen. Even $25 a month counts. Over time, this category creates financial peace. You may also have a large bill that comes out once or twice a year. If you tuck away that money on a weekly or monthly basis, you'll have that money in order to pay that bill without putting it on the credit card. Here's your takeaway. Write down those 5 categories on paper. Then go through your last bank statement or credit card statement and sort at least 20 transactions into those buckets. You'll start seeing where your money is actually flowing. Now it's time to make it real with an example. Say you bring home $5,000 a month. When you break that down into categories, it might look like this. $2,200 for essentials, $900 to debt and obligations, $1,000 to flexible spending, $300 to irregular expenses, and $600 to savings or the cushion. Now, most people don't know this breakdown until they actually do it. They just swipe their card, pay the bills when they're due, and hope it all works out. But once you see your money organized this way, it's truly eye-opening. Here's an example from a client I worked with. She was frustrated that she wasn't saving anything. When we did the breakdown, she realized almost 40% of her money was going into flexible spending. She wasn't overspending on one big thing, but lots of little things. Takeout, impulse target runs, subscription boxes. By just shifting a fraction of that to her cushion category, she was able to build a $1,000 emergency fund in 3 months. That's the power of awareness. You don't have to make massive changes all at once. Even small shifts in how you spend can lead to quick wins that build momentum. Here's the challenge for you. Write down your monthly income. Then do a rough estimate of how much goes into each of the 5 categories. Don't stress if you're not being exact. Even an estimate gives you a picture. Once you see it, ask yourself, which category feels too heavy? Which one is underfunded? And that's where your first opportunity will be for change. You're always going to have roadblocks. These are the things that make people feel like they're stuck on a hamster wheel with their money. The first roadblock is overspending in lifestyle. I call this the silent money drain. It's $15 lunch, the $30 Amazon cart, or the $50 night out. None of these are bad on their own, but they add up quickly. The average person underestimates their lifestyle spending by hundreds of dollars each month. The second roadblock is ignoring debt, credit cards especially. If you only ever pay the minimums, you're paying 3 times over that for the pair of shoes or that dinner out. Debt is like cooking in a cluttered kitchen. It slows you down and makes everything harder. The third roadblock is forgetting about those irregular expenses. This one sneaks up on most people. Holidays, back to school, shopping, car repairs, house repairs, yearly insurance renewals. These aren't monthly, so we don't plan for them, but when they hit, they derail everything. It feels like you're starting over. So here's what I want you to know. These roadblocks don't mean you're bad with your money. They just mean you've been working without a clear system. Once you start thinking in categories, you'll spot these issues before they blow up. Pick one of these roadblocks and write down how it shows up for you. Is it lifestyle spending where your money leaks out? Is it debt keeping you from moving forward? Or do irregular expenses always catch you off guard? Just naming your biggest roadblock is a huge first step. Here's the good news. You don't need a complicated app or spreadsheet to start using categories. Let me walk you through 4 simple steps. Step 1, track 1 month of expenses. Print your bank and credit card statements, grab a highlighter, or just scroll through your app. You don't have to do this forever, just for 1 month. Step 2, sort it into categories. Use the 5 buckets we talked about: essentials, debt and obligations, flexible spending, irregular expenses, and savings. Step 3, notice your habits. This is where the magic happens. Maybe you'll realize your grocery bill really isn't the problem. It's the takeout. Or maybe you'll see that debt payments are eating up a huge chunk of your money. Awareness leads to options. Step 4, make one change at a time. Too often, people want to overhaul everything at once. That doesn't last. Pick one small thing. Maybe it's moving $50 from lifestyle to savings. Maybe it's calling to cancel a subscription you don't use anymore. One small change builds confidence, and confidence keeps you going. Tonight, go through your bank statement or credit card statement and highlight your last 10 expenses. Sort them down in categories. Then ask yourself, what's one small change I can make this week? Don't overcomplicate this, just start. When you start using categories, something powerful happens. First, you stress less. No more wondering if you'll have enough money for bills. You'll know your essentials are covered. Second, you'll feel more confident. Instead of asking, can I afford this? You already know. You see where the money is coming from and what it's affecting. And third, you see progress. You notice your debt shrinking. You see a savings cushion building. You realize you're no longer blindsided by irregular expenses. That visible progress builds momentum. One of my clients once told me, I feel like I'm driving the car instead of my car driving me. That's what happens when you move from chaos to clarity. Take a moment and picture what would change in your life if you had more financial clarity. Would you stress less about the bills? Would you feel freer to say yes to something fun? Would you sleep better at night? Write that down, because that vision is the payoff of all of this work. My invitation to you is simple. Try category spending this month. Don't wait for the perfect moment, just start. Sort your spending into the 5 categories and see what you learn. If you want more help, that's where a financial coach comes in. I coach people through this process, helping them not just to see the numbers, but stick with the changes that matters the most. Remember, your finances don't have to feel messy. With the right recipe and the right ingredients, you can create peace, progress, and freedom with your money. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey Nancy, as always, that was brilliant. Peace, progress, and freedom. I think we could all do with that, couldn't we?
Yes, and I'm hearing a constant theme through today is start small. Take one small action. And I swear everybody said it already, just to take a few dollars a month and put it into a savings account.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, no, those categories as well take up so much overwhelm out of it. I just love it. We have some questions for you. Our first one is a pre-submitted question, and it is, as the cost of living has increased, I've worked on ways to reduce my spending. Initially, I made progress and felt empowered, but how can I stay motivated to continue budgeting and controlling spending for the long term?
Oh, that is so true. I know, with everything going up, and sometimes you just have to make those priorities of what matters. In a situation like mine, my son has food allergies, so I have to spend more money on the food that I get because he can't have regular milk. I have to buy the oat milk, which is $3.69 for a half gallon. So that means, you're close to $7 for a gallon of milk, in which a regular gallon of milk is anywhere from $3 to $4, depending on the week. So with that, I have to okay, I have to adjust my other numbers because I know I have to spend more money on groceries, but I'm going to reduce where else I'm spending. And I know one of the questions we had in the beginning was, how do you make that extra money? And I've done that too. I've got things around the house where I can either sell it on Mercari or Facebook Marketplace. So then I don't feel that big hurt because my grocery budget's higher. I can grab some extra income here and there in order to offset that another category where I might have to spend a little bit more.
Mm. That's so helpful. And that ties in with our second question, which is how do I know if I'm overspending in a certain category?
Oh, that's a good one. And looking at everything over the course of the year, and what's nice about it is in your credit card apps, I know for sure in the credit cards, I'm not really too sure on your bank apps because every bank is a little bit different if you're using a debit card. But I know with Chase, I can go in and basically ask it to tell me what my spending is, whether it was this month, whether this quarter, this whole year. And then that's when you can actually average it out. If you're trying to watch your expenses, and my gas might range anywhere from $150 to $250 a month. Well, it might be more because it was summer. I was doing some more traveling. Obviously, traveling to vacation to see family, that gas is going to be up. I usually don't spend much in my automobile or transportation because I paid off my car, but all of a sudden one month I was hit with $900 because I needed to do some major repair for my vehicle. So looking at it as an average, even when you're saying to yourself, okay, I want to sort of budget, I want to understand how much I'm spending each month, having that yearly and then dividing it, obviously by 9 at this point because you've got 9 months into the year, you can say, okay, on average I'm spending about $150 on fuel. So when the cost goes up or down in a given month, on average you're spending about $150. That's going to happen with any of the other categories because again, the kids might be home from school and they're eating you out of house and home. And so the groceries are going to be more in the summer than they are during the school year. So again, just having that awareness is really important that if you have to adjust other categories, or we mentioned some other cost saving ideas today in this summit, that you have to look at it on an average and don't stress out so much that, like I said, one month I had a $900 charge on my credit card for my vehicle. Well, it's just what happens, and lifes you. So just having an idea of how much you're spending in each category is very helpful.
Brilliant, brilliant. And this question leads, or the next one leads on from that. How do you handle surprise expenses that don't neatly fit into one of your 5 categories?
Ooh, yeah, that can be really challenging. And I'm going to say more than likely that's going to run into that irregular category just because it was something you weren't expecting. I know earlier today somebody talked about the water heater. You're not expecting that. You might have to put it on a credit card or work with the company in order to get a loan. And one of my clients was in the same boat. She's like, I need to get a new stove. I said, well, you can always get a Lowe's credit card as long as it's over a certain amount. It's going to be, 6 months, same as cash or whatever. So few sessions later, she said, I might have to get a new water heater. And the guy came by and looked at it. Well, that might be an option too. Go to Lowe's, see about them because you have probably enough credit line that you're able to take advantage of that situation where it's 0%. There is a catch as long as you get it paid by a certain time without the deferred interest. But those might be some specific cases where having that extra card, but in general, it's really hard when you have those extra charges that just pop up. And that's where, even Lesley was talking about just tucking money away and having that for those emergency funds that you have to pay the local plumber cash because they don't take credit card. So having the different systems in place and having money in different places that you need it is really, really important.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And our last question, if I want to start with just one small step, what's the easiest thing or way to try and categorize spending without overcomplicating it.
Yes, like I said, going back to your apps or just having the awareness, looking and seeing what you're doing, because unless you're pulling the money out of your wallet, you're not necessarily seeing that money go through, because we're charging it so many times that looking at those credit cards and seeing where, that's why I love going into the credit card app, because it will tell you what category is the biggest expense for this month or this quarter. So then that can really give awareness. But if you know for sure that every morning you're going in and getting a coffee or a bagel or whatever, consider grabbing those things at the grocery store and having that at home and making that time to do it at home before you head off to work, in order to, you might just save $3 a day, and $3 a day really does add up. So looking internally, and it's just like stepping on the scale, saying, hey, okay, my pants are too tight, I need to lose some weight. Well, let's see where you are with your weight, and so you can track your progress. The same thing is going to your inside and saying, okay, I need to make a change.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes our instinct says as well, doesn't it? And sometimes we don't listen to our instinct, but actually
So we
your
don't want
system
to.
backs it up.
That is so true. So true.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you so much, Nancy. That was always good. Always
No
great.
problem.
Hi, Jenny Marshall here. I'm delighted to be rounding out our summit this evening. I want to talk about my ingredient on the ultimate recipe for money wellness. My ingredient is about your rules, your recipe. And it's really about finding a system that is going to work for you. There are so many different internet, social media, books out there on money wellness. And I wanted to share with you a little bit of information that I found on Google. There are 320 million cheesecake recipes on the internet. There's actually over 100 million different articles on managing your money. So you're never going to be short of an idea. And that's normally not what holds us back, the idea. Normally what holds us back is we haven't found something that works for us. The screen that I've got up just now shows 4 segments, and this is what I'm going to focus on in the session today. What are we trying to achieve? How best can we do that for you? When is the right time, and where is the right time to do the financial management? These are really key essential ingredients. The next slide I've got up shows a little bit more information surrounding those 4 things. And what I want you to do is answer these questions, and I've left space for you to put in your own answers. What is it you're doing? Financial management is massive. It's everything between tracking your expenditure, looking at your assets, looking at your debt, finding out your goals. It's huge. And if you sit down and try to do all of those at once, you are going to be massively overwhelmed. So chunk it down. I'm a massive believer in chunking things down. So what is it you want to achieve? Is it to check your net worth, review your spendings, check saving goals, or plan your big goals, or something else? Write that answer in the box. How? I love spreadsheets. I'm an accountant, and I have spent the last 30 years working with spreadsheets. I am so comfortable with them, but I know that not everybody is. Some people like good old-fashioned pen and paper. Some people like an app. Some people just like an envelope system. It doesn't matter what works for you. Please don't sit down and try and do financial management on a spreadsheet if you're not comfortable with a spreadsheet. That is going to be the recipe for disaster. Work with something you're comfortable with. By all means, learn about spreadsheets and move on to those if that's what you want. But don't start off with something that's really difficult for you, because it's going to make the task even more difficult. When there is absolutely no point in trying to do your finances when you're tired, when you're busy, when you've got kids running around, when you're expecting phone calls, when you're trying to do too many other things. So find a time and find that time ahead of time. For example, the kids are going to be out on a Sunday afternoon. That's perfect. I get up really early in the morning, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. That's my peaceful time. Maybe I do my finances there where I know I'm going to be fresh and I'm not going to have any interruptions. What works for you? Finally, where? Am I going to do it at my desk? Do I have a home office? Is it going to be in my kitchen or dining table? Is it going to be on the couch or a comfy chair? And that's perfect if you're doing paper and pen. Am I going to do it at the office? So maybe my home environment just isn't going to work. So maybe I stay on for half an hour extra in the office and get it done there. Write your answer there. What we're then going to move forward onto is create a sentence. And this is really important because this is a sentence that actually includes all your commitments. If you can see on the screen, I will, for example, track my spending using a paper and pencil, an app, whatever. When? When the kids are practicing their football on a Saturday afternoon, whatever it is. And where am I going to do that? I'm going to do that at the kitchen table because I can lay everything out. Write those things down so that you can create a sentence. And those sentences has your commitment. What I would really advise you to do is look at that, put it away and take it out again. Quite often when we're in the mood to do something, everything seems possible. But actually what we want to do is get into a place where this actually becomes familiar. So look at the sentence a couple of times before you actually attempt to do it. If you feel that it jars you at all and you can make something a bit easier, then just rewrite it. When you've decided that that's your way forward, put it somewhere on the fridge, in your handbag, bathroom mirror, whatever it is, put that there and just get comfortable with it because this is your commitment. And what we've created is a really good plan. However, because we're doing recipes, I thought, let's add a little bit. Let's add some sprinkles on top here. And the sprinkles on top are accountability and reward. Those are the magic bits that we add to our system because those are going to be keeping us accountable and they're going to give us some reward system. So there's a little bit of a carrot and a little bit of a stick there. Carrot being the reward, stick being the accountability. And this is where I want you to really get to know yourself. Where do you find it easier to do something? So I know, for example, if I tell my husband, he will let me off every time. If I say to him, by the way, I want to weigh myself every Monday morning, and on a Monday morning I say, oh, I don't really want to do that, he's going to go, okay. So he's not great at keeping me accountable. Love him to bits, but he's not going to make me accountable. If I phone my friend Anne and I say to her, by the way, I'm going to do my money on Saturday, go and get my phone on Saturday night and just make sure I've done it, she will 100% do that. And I don't want to have to admit to her that I didn't do that. So what works for you in terms of accountability? Then what's a nice reward? And I don't mean going out and doing a massive, huge celebration. You can if you like, but I don't think that works because the bigger that is, the more pressure you become. Something small, favourite coffee, reading a book for half an hour, your box set, the telly, whatever it is, do something that's going to reward you. And then what we want is we want to add that into the sentence. So once you're really familiar with the sentence, add in extra. So what you can see on the screen is the sentence that we already had, but I will do this because Susan's going to call me on Sunday afternoon to check, and my reward is a long bath on Sunday evening. And those two things added are going to really make you want to do this. Now, there's a further little magic to add to this, and I would maybe say that these are the candles on the cake, and this is the valuation. And the first rule in this is be kind. Really be kind to yourself. If you have done it, or even if you haven't done it, look at your evaluation. What went well? We always start with what went well because we want to be positive about this. What didn't go so well, and we want to be honest about this. And sometimes it's, do you know what? I just didn't do it. Now, if we have a goal that we want to do something with our finances, that's not amazing. But what's going to be different? And go back to your sentence, particularly with the sprinkles, and look at, well, what didn't work so well and what will I do differently? Is Susan phoning me on Saturday night really going to be the thing that keeps me on the straight and narrow? Is my reward too big, too small, whatever it is? Did I actually chunk off too much? Did I not do it at a time that was going to be helpful for me? What the evaluation is designed to do is to keep your momentum going. This is not guilt tripping. It is to be looking at what went well, and I really want you to focus on that because something will have, I promise you. And the more you start to look for these things, the more you'll see them. What didn't go so well? Just be honest. Don't major on this. One thing is fine. And then what can I do differently? And you know what? If everything went swimmingly well, then don't fill that in. I'm not suggesting that you always have to do something differently. But if you want to do, if you think you can, then by all means, fill that in. Look at it with no shame, no judgment. Just actually, this is there to help me. It's my little friend on my shoulder that's helping me. So the thing that I want you to do is find out something that works for you, do it and evaluate it. Do not tip everything on its head if it didn't work. Tweak, slightly change where you need to, but keep going. When you're on social media and you're scrolling and somebody's come up with a massively new thing, don't look at that. It's not your friend. That's marketing. That's the 320 million cheesecakes we're talking about. What we need to be doing is saying, right, okay, I know myself. This is what I set out to do, and I will keep going with that. Might seem a little boring because it is a bit shiny toy if we go on Google and there's a million different ways to do things. But we know ourselves. The absolute key to this is consistently showing up, doing it, getting better over time, and managing your finances. I hope that's been really helpful for you. I've loved presenting today. All the very best.
Well, Jenny, that was so great and just an awesome way for us to kind of wrap up the summit. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we do have a kind of a couple questions that came in. As you were kind of talking, what do you see is like the biggest mistake people make when trying to kind of manage their money without coming up with a system?
Yeah, I think we rely on our willpower, and we rely on, I think, right now, we in social media, talking to other people, quite often we can get so distracted with different ideas and different concepts. And for all the things that we've said today, there will be things that resonate with you, and there'll be other things that are a little bit not resonating. Pick the thing that's easiest for you, the thing that you can do. We all need a little bit of a stretch, but don't try and climb the mountain in one step. It's just not going to happen. So I think the biggest mistake is people feeling like what they're doing is the wrong way. It's probably not. It's actually keeping going with something. Talking to people as well, is useful, but don't be distracted, because what works for your neighbor or your friend or your colleague might not be what works for you. So know yourself and stick to whatever it is that you know about yourself, and trust yourself, back yourself.
Yeah, I think that's so important because sometimes even when we start taking steps, we get to this point and we're maybe not seeing all the results from the steps that we're taking. And we're like, is this working? Should I be doing this? And it's really easy to get distracted. So thank you for just reminding us, that we really do need to kind of take a minute, kind of look, think about ourselves and what really is going to work for us. And again, all of us kind of had this theme about, do one thing or the first step. So kind of what in your mind is sort of with everything that we've talked about today, how does somebody determine like the next first step they should do if they're overwhelmed with just everything they're hearing or, with their finances in general?
Yeah, I totally get that, and I think it's one of the biggest things that stands in people's way, of not progressing. We've kind of covered this a little bit. I don't think there's right and a wrong step. I think any step towards managing your finances, and that's said with love and with kindness. So, never put yourself in the wrong. But if you are feeling overwhelmed, do something that is going to be helpful for you. We talked about earlier on, if getting all your debt, if debt is the thing that worries you most, then put down on a bit of paper all your debt and actually know that if that feels just, pick one place where you have debt. If you've got 2 or 3 credit cards, just pick one. If you've got a bank loan, pick one. The very smallest step that you can take is better than doing nothing. So I don't think we should be setting out to overwhelm ourselves. Sometimes we overestimate what we can do in a day. I think Bill Gates said, we overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can achieve in 10 years. Whatever makes you feel comfortable is the right step. Sometimes it's the biggest thing, eat the frog. The biggest thing is what you want to start with. Other people are smaller, I want to do something small that I don't want to worry about. Know yourself, but I don't get hung up on it. I just think one thing. I love Lesley, what she said, which was, how do we make 5 minutes matter? Just do something in 5 minutes and make it matter.
Yeah.
And all the things that you are putting off today will naturally come. Just trust the process, they will naturally come. They might feel scary now, they won't in 3 and 6 months' time.
Yeah. I think that's so true and important is, really focus on what makes the most sense for you, what really aligns with your goals, and take that first step with that. And that might be different than your neighbor or your friend, and that's okay. And then the other thing I really stood out to me too is to be kind with yourself. We are our hardest critic often. And if we can be, mindful and kind with ourselves, that's really going to do a lot more for us making progress. So for you, what is one simple system or habit or tool that you use that has really made a difference in the way that you manage your money?
Wow, that is such a good question. And one that I probably need to think a little of.
Put you on the spot there.
Yeah, and my natural instinct is just to think about when I was growing up, and perhaps I'm showing my age here, but you got your bank statements one time per month. So you had to look at them once per month. Now you can literally get, whenever you've shopped, sort of before you've even left the shop, you've got an app message saying that you've done something. I think the best thing I've done is to make sure that all my banking is online and I have instant access to that. What that does is, I can remember, particularly when I was a student, almost looking through my fingers at my bank statement once a month. It was such a big thing. Therefore, it was easy to ignore. I'm just going to put that down because, oh my goodness, what did I do 3 weeks ago? Because you're really facing the reality. But actually, I think these tools, these online tools are fantastic because you can get up to date and you can correct something. So if you've had a bit of a binge in terms of spending this weekend, instead of waiting until the next month to have the shame on your bank account, which I don't believe in anyway, but that is a natural emotion, you can go, oh, right, okay, well, that's done. But I have got time to correct that before the end of the month. Learn from these things. So it is that's for me is constantly checking. Now, I say constantly, I mean consistently checking and just making sure that I've got funds, that I'm not going to overdraw, that I can make decisions. Some people look at that as disempowering. I don't. I've changed my mindset to that empowers me to make good decisions. So if you can and it works for you, online apps are really useful.
Yeah. And that also ties into some of the other speakers about bringing that awareness and clarity, with our money. Like if we're able to have that clarity, then we can make different decisions and kind of stay within our budget or within our particular categories. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Jenny.
Thank you.
It was really great, and I really loved your recipe. I might even use that myself because I just think it's a very clear way to kind of stay focused on our goals because sometimes our goals get pretty big, and that's a nice way to kind of wrap everything up. So thank you again.
Thank you.